On a freezing morning, Marcus Hale, a poor black delivery teen, stopped his bicycle in front of a billionaire's mansion. Suddenly, he heard a woman's desperate scream echoing from inside. Through the window, Marcus saw dozens of doctors rushing around trying to save her, but every single one of them failed. Unable to just stand by, Marcus ran through the mansion doors, carrying nothing but an old canvas bag. What happened next shocked everyone in the mansion, and changed his life forever. Before we continue, tell us what time it is and where you're watching from. Subscribe and hype, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. Marcus Hale's hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stood at the service entrance of the Langford estate, his old bicycle leaning against the gate behind him, the delivery bag still strapped to the rack. For a moment he told himself to just get back on and ride away. This wasn't his business. Rich people had their own doctors, their own emergencies. He was just here to drop off coffee and move on. But then the scream came again from somewhere inside the mansion. A woman's scream, high, desperate, filled with pain. Marcus froze. And in the middle of that cold December air he heard his grandmother's voice, clear as if she were standing right beside him. "If you can help, you help, baby. Doesn't matter who they are. But what if they think I'm trying to scam them? What if they call the police? What if I lose this job and can't pay rent?" The scream came a third time, weaker now. Marcus's hand dropped from his bicycle's handlebars. Before fear could stop him, he was already running around the side of the mansion, following the sound. 30 minutes earlier, Marcus had been running late for his first delivery of the day. He'd overslept after working a double shift at the warehouse the night before, and Destiny had needed help with her homework before school. By the time he loaded the coffee orders onto his bike from Brookside Catering, the December sun was just starting to hint at rising over Snowbridge. The Langford estate was his first stop. 20 premium coffees for the household staff, ordered every Tuesday morning like clockwork. Easy delivery, decent tip, in and out. Martha, the head housekeeper, usually met him at the service entrance with a smile and a $5 tip. She was a kind woman, maybe 60 years old, who always asked about his grandmother. But when Marcus arrived that morning, Martha wasn't at the door. He waited for 5 minutes, stamping his feet in the cold, before texting the number on the order. No response. He was about to leave the coffee at the door and pedal off when he heard it, a scream from somewhere deep inside the mansion. Marcus froze, one hand still on the handlebars of his bike. "Not your business. Just leave the coffee and go." But the scream came again, and this time Marcus heard other voices too, panicked voices, someone shouting orders, the chaos of an emergency. That's when Marcus made the decision that would change everything. He ran around the mansion until he found himself beneath a massive second-floor window. Through it he could see into a bedroom, no, a suite larger than his entire apartment. An elderly woman lay on a 4-poster bed, her small body rigid and convulsing. Around her stood at least a dozen people in white coats, doctors, Marcus realized. A lot of doctors, and they all looked terrified. Marcus watched a tall woman with gray hair, clearly in charge, barking orders at the others. Watched them trying medication after medication. Watched monitors beeping frantically. Watched a man who looked familiar, maybe from magazines or TV, standing by the window with his hands in his hair, looking like his world was ending. The elderly woman convulsed again, and Marcus felt his stomach drop. He'd seen seizures before. Growing up in Frostvale, you saw everything. But this looked wrong. Her color was wrong. The way her body moved was wrong. And there was something else. Marcus's nose picked up a scent, even from outside. Floral but chemical, like fake flowers, not real ones. 3 years ago, a woman in their building, Miss Sarah Williams, had seizures just like this. She'd bought cheap essential oils from a street vendor, trying to help with her breathing problems. Instead, she'd nearly died. Mama Marin had saved her. "Fresh air first," she'd said. "Get her away from whatever's poisoning her. Then herbs to help the body clear it out." Marcus watched the doctors in that expensive bedroom, throwing modern medicine at a problem they didn't understand, and he knew what was wrong. But who would listen to him? A 19-year-old delivery boy from Frostvale. He stood there, frozen with indecision, for maybe 20 seconds that felt like hours. Then the elderly woman convulsed again, harder this time, and Marcus stopped thinking. He ran to the front entrance. The security guard at the front door was a mountain of a man. His name tag read, Turner, and his expression said he'd seen every con artist and crazy person who'd ever tried to get past him. Delivery entrance is around back, kid. I know, sir, but Marcus's voice cracked. He swallowed and tried again. There's a woman up there having a seizure, through that window. I saw her. Turner's expression didn't change. The family has doctors, move along. Please. Marcus pulled out the small canvas bag he always carried. His hands were shaking so bad he almost dropped it. My grandmother, she's a healer. She treated someone with seizures just like that. I'm not sure, but I think I might know what's wrong. Turner's hand moved to his radio. Kid, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave, and then I'm calling the police. That woman is dying. Marcus's voice came out louder than he intended, desperate. I'm not trying to scam anyone. I just want to help. Please, just let me talk to whoever's in charge up there. If I'm wrong, fine, call the cops, I'll go. But if I'm right and you don't let me try. He didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Turner stared at him for a long moment. What's in the bag? Herbs. Plants. My grandmother taught me. Herbs. Turner repeated, his voice flat. I know how it sounds, Marcus said quickly. I know you think I'm crazy. But that woman up there, she's not having a regular seizure. It's something in the air, something she's breathing. I can smell it from outside. It's the front door burst open and another security guard came running out, his face pale. Turner, we need everyone upstairs. Mrs. Langford's having another seizure and Dr. Wells says it's bad. Really bad. They're saying, he stopped glancing at Marcus, then lowered his voice. They're saying she might not make it this time. Turner looked at the other guard, then back at Marcus, standing there with his canvas bag, trembling hands and desperate eyes. What's your name, kid? Marcus Hale. Before Turner could say anything else, a commanding voice echoed from the top of the grand staircase. What's going on here? Richard Langford stood there, tall but tense, his face pale with worry. Even in his tailored suit, he looked exhausted, like a man who hadn't slept in days. Sir, Turner began carefully. This boy says he knows what's wrong with Mrs. Langford. Richard's sharp gaze landed on Marcus. You said you know what's wrong with my mother. Marcus's voice came out shaking but steady. I think so, sir. I was making a delivery, and I saw her through the window. I've seen someone have seizures like that before. My grandmother treated it. I think it's something in the air, something she's breathing. One of the guards scoffed quietly, but Richard didn't take his eyes off Marcus. He came down the stairs slowly. You're a delivery boy? Yes, sir, but please, if you just let me explain. If I'm wrong, I'll leave, but if I'm right, I can help. Richard hesitated only a moment, torn between reason and desperation. Then he turned to the guards. Let him in, sir. The doctors, one began. I said let him in. Richard's voice cracked like a whip. If he wastes our time, I'll take responsibility. But if he's right, we don't have time to argue. Turner stepped aside immediately. Marcus followed Richard through the mansion, barely registering the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, and the paintings that probably cost more than 100 times his bicycle. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might explode. What are you doing? He thought. You're a delivery boy. They'll throw you out. They'll call you a scam artist. You'll lose your job, maybe get arrested. Mama Marin's voice cut through the panic. Knowledge is meant to be shared, baby. If you can help, you help. They climbed a sweeping staircase, other staff members rushing past them, the air thick with fear. At the top of the stairs, they reached a heavy double door guarded by more security. Richard didn't hesitate. He threw the doors open himself. The room was chaos, barely contained. 15 people in white coats crowded around a massive 4-poster bed. Medical equipment beeped and hummed. The elderly woman, Mrs. Langford, lay rigid on the bed, her body convulsing, her face twisted in pain. Richard stopped just inside the doorway, his voice sharp. Everyone stopped for a second. A tall woman with short gray hair and exhausted eyes turned toward him. Her white coat had a name embroidered on it. Dr. Clara Wells, Maryland. Sir, we can't stop now, she started, but Richard cut her off. This young man says he might know what's causing the seizures. You're out of options, doctor. Let him speak. Dr. Wells turned toward Marcus, her eyes narrowing slightly. Who are you? Marcus Hale, ma'am. His voice came out steady despite his terror. I was making a coffee run on my bike when I saw Mrs. Langford through the window, and I think I might know what's wrong. The room fell silent, except for the beeping monitors and Mrs. Langford's labored breathing. One of the doctors laughed, actually laughed. A delivery boy on a bicycle thinks he knows what 15 board-certified physicians can't figure out. I didn't mean. Marcus swallowed hard. My grandmother, she's treated seizures like this before, and I can smell something weird in this room. Something chemical, but trying to smell like flowers. Dr. Wells frowned. What do you mean chemical? That. Marcus pointed to an expensive-looking diffuser in the corner, releasing a thin mist. Whatever's in that machine. It smells wrong, like fake lavender, not real lavender. My grandmother says real plants smell clean and sharp. That smells plasticky. That's a $500 therapeutic diffuser, another doctor said. Premium Italian oils, organic and certified. Maybe, Marcus said, his courage growing slightly. But 3 years ago, a lady in my building had seizures just like this. She'd been using cheap oils from a street vendor. They were fake, cut with chemicals. My grandmother treated her with fresh air and herbs, and she got better. Dr. Wells walked slowly to the diffuser, picked up the bottle of oil, and smelled it carefully. Her expression changed. How long has this been running? She asked sharply. Richard's voice was hoarse. 3 months. I gave it to my mother for her birthday. The company said it would help her sleep. 3 months, Dr. Wells repeated. She looked at Marcus. When did the seizures start? About 3 months ago, Richard whispered. Dr. Wells turned back to Marcus. What did your grandmother do? Exactly. Marcus's mouth was dry, but he forced the words out. Fresh air first. Get her away from whatever's poisoning her. Open the windows, turn off that machine. Then there are herbs that help the body clear out toxins. I have some in my bag. If you think it might help, I could. Do it. Richard said, his voice cracking. Sir, I really think we should. One of the doctors began. Do it. Richard barked. His voice broke, but his eyes were steady. You've tried everything. Nothing's worked. She's dying. Let him try. I need hot water, Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. And a clean towel, if that's okay. A nurse brought both items quickly. Richard stayed close, watching Marcus with a mix of fear and fragile hope. Marcus crushed the herbs with shaking hands, added them to the bowl of hot water, and breathed in the sharp, clean scent that rose up. Dr. Wells, he said carefully. My grandmother would make a tent with the towel, so the person breathes in the steam, and then, he hesitated. She showed me pressure points, on the neck and wrists. She said they help circulation, help the body process toxins faster. Dr. Wells glanced at Richard. He gave a single nod. Do it, he said quietly. She didn't hesitate after that. Together, she and Marcus created the makeshift tent over Mrs. Langford's head, guiding the herbal steam toward her face. Then Marcus placed his hands where Mama Marin had taught him, the hollow at the base of the neck, the inside of the wrists. He applied gentle pressure, counting his breaths the way his grandmother had shown him. 1, 2, 3. Nothing happened. 4, 5, 6. Still nothing. Marcus could feel 15 pairs of eyes on his back, could feel the weight of Richard Langford's desperation pressing against the silence. What if I'm wrong? What if this doesn't work? What if I just made everything worse? 7, 8, 9. Mrs. Langford's convulsions began to slow. 10, 11, 12. Her breathing started to deepen. The blue tint faded slightly from her lips. 15, 16, 17. The seizure stopped. The room fell absolutely silent, except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Dr. Wells grabbed Mrs. Langford's wrist, checking her pulse. Her oxygen saturation is rising. Her voice was stunned. Blood pressure is normalizing. Respiratory rate steady. She looked at Marcus like he'd just performed a miracle. What did you just do? Marcus's legs went weak. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, suddenly aware that he was sitting on furniture worth more than 100 times his bicycle. My grandmother said sometimes seizures aren't from the brain. They're from the body trying to get rid of poison. The herbs help the liver and kidneys work faster. The pressure points help circulation. And the fresh air, he gestured toward the open windows, gets rid of whatever's in the air that shouldn't be there. Richard Langford walked slowly from the window to the bed, looking at his mother breathing peacefully for the first time in hours. A single tear ran down his face. "You saved her," he whispered. "A delivery boy with a bag of herbs saved my mother when the best doctors in the world couldn't." Marcus swallowed hard. "I don't know if I saved her," he said honestly. "But maybe I helped a little." Mrs. Langford's eyes fluttered. She took a deep breath, clear, unlabored, and let it out slowly. She was still unconscious, still weak, but she was breathing. Really breathing. Dr. Wells turned to the other doctors. "We need that oil tested immediately. Full chemical analysis. And I want a complete toxicology panel on Mrs. Langford, blood, urine, everything. If this is environmental poisoning, we need to know exactly what caused it." She looked back at Marcus. "You said your grandmother treated someone with similar symptoms." "Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Sarah Williams. She lives in my building in Frostvale. That was about 3 years ago." "I'd like to speak with your grandmother," Dr. Wells said. "And with Mrs. Williams, if she's willing. We need to document this." Marcus nodded, still shaky with adrenaline and relief. "My grandmother would like that. She always says old knowledge and new knowledge should work together." Richard Langford was still standing beside the bed, holding his mother's hand, tears streaking his face. "What's your name again?" "Marcus Hale, sir." "Marcus Hale," Richard repeated quietly, as if committing it to memory. He looked at this 19-year-old kid in a faded delivery jacket, this stranger who'd knocked on his door and changed everything. "I need to know who you are, where you come from, how you learned to do this." "It's not that interesting, sir. It's the most interesting thing I've heard in years," Richard interrupted. "I've spent millions on the best medical care money can buy, and none of it worked. But you walked in with a bag of herbs, and," he gestured toward his mother, breathing evenly. "How?" From the doorway, Martha, the housekeeper, spoke up. Marcus hadn't even noticed her come in. "If I may, Mr. Langford," she said gently. "Marcus helped me too, about a month ago. My arthritis was so bad I could barely work. He gave me some kind of herbal wrap his grandmother made. It helped more than anything my doctor prescribed." She looked at Marcus with warm eyes. "He wouldn't take a penny for it, either. Said his grandmother taught him that healing shouldn't cost money." Richard studied Marcus, something shifting behind his expression. "You've been helping people all along, haven't you?" Marcus shrugged, uneasy. "Just when I can. It's what my grandmother taught me." "Your grandmother sounds like a remarkable woman." "She is, sir, the best person I know." Richard nodded slowly. "I'd like to meet her. I'd like to thank her personally." "You don't have to do that, sir, really." "Yes," Richard said firmly. "I do, but first, they had to wait." Mrs. Langford was stable but still unconscious. Dr. Wells insisted on keeping her under observation for at least 24 hours. Marcus stayed, despite the missed deliveries, despite the risk of losing his job. Mama Marin had taught him, if you start helping someone, you see it through. Every few hours, he changed the herbal steam, adjusted the pressure points, monitored Mrs. Langford's breathing. The doctors watched him work, skepticism slowly turning to curiosity. "Where did you learn anatomy?" one finally asked. "Those pressure points, you're hitting major vessels and lymph nodes precisely." "My grandmother taught me," Marcus said simply. "She said the body has rivers of blood and streams of lymph, and if you know where they flow, you can help them move better." "That's actually pretty accurate," the doctor admitted grudgingly. It was late afternoon, nearly 16 hours after Marcus had first stepped inside, when Mrs. Langford finally woke up alive. Marcus Hale grew up in Frostvale, in an apartment that was too small and too cold, but it was home. He lived there with his grandmother, Mama Marin, and his little sister Destiny. Their mother had died when Marcus was 12, cancer that spread too fast, with no money for treatment. Their father had left long before that. So it was just the three of them, Mama Marin's social security check, Marcus's part-time jobs, and a lot of prayer. But Marcus never felt poor when he was with her. Every morning at 5, Mama Marin brewed tea from the herbs she grew on the windowsill. Chamomile for calm, mint for energy, ginger for strength. "Come sit with me, baby," she'd say. And Marcus would join her at their tiny kitchen table, the same one his mother had used. She taught him things no school ever could. Which plants healed, and which ones harmed. How to tell if someone was sick just by their tongue. How to break a fever, ease pain, calm fear. Where'd you learn all this? He asked once. From my grandmother, she said, crushing lavender between her palms. And she learned from hers. Back when our people didn't have doctors, we had to take care of our own. But why don't doctors use herbs? They use what they're taught, from books written by other doctors, pills, machines, surgery. All good things, she said, handing him the lavender. But somewhere along the way, people forgot the earth was our first medicine. So which is better? Neither, she said. They just don't talk to each other anymore. Doctors think herbs are superstition, and folks like me think doctors don't listen. But both kinds of knowledge matter. That conversation stayed with Marcus, even after he dropped out of high school at 17 to work full-time. He still watched Mama Marin treat neighbors who couldn't afford doctors, still memorized every plant, every mixture, every method. You have a gift, she told him on his 19th birthday, 2 weeks before he saved Mrs. Langford. You see connections. You listen, that's rare. Promise me something: when you see someone who needs help, you help them. No matter who they are. Marcus promised, and 2 weeks later, standing outside the Langford estate, hearing a woman scream, he remembered that promise. The morning after Dr. Wells called, Marcus put on his best clothes, which weren't very good, and pedaled up Winter Hill on his old bicycle. In daylight, the Langford estate looked like a castle: stone walls, towers, manicured lawns. He coasted to a stop at the front gate, chained his bike by the entrance, and tried to smooth the wrinkles from his shirt before walking up the long driveway. Martha, the head housekeeper, greeted him with a smile. Marcus, I'm so glad you came. Mrs. Langford's doing much better thanks to you. That's good to hear. Mr. Langford's waiting in his study. The hallways gleamed with chandeliers and oil paintings. Marcus tried not to stare, but he'd never seen that kind of wealth, except on TV. Richard Langford stood by a wide window, still tired but no longer desperate. Marcus, he said warmly, please sit. Marcus perched on the edge of a leather chair that probably cost more than 100 of his bicycles. First, Richard said, thank you properly this time. My mother's alive because of you. I'm just glad she's okay, sir. She's more than okay. Dr. Wells says she'll make a full recovery. The toxins are clearing. Marcus exhaled. That's a relief. Richard studied him. Why did you help Marcus, sir? You could have walked away. You didn't. Why? Marcus hesitated. My grandmother says, if you can help, you help. Doesn't matter who it is. If you don't use what you know, you're responsible for what happens. Richard nodded. She sounds like a wise woman. She is, sir. The wisest person I know. I'd like to meet her. She said she'd be happy to meet you. Richard smiled faintly. Dr. Wells tells me you've never studied medicine formally. No, sir. Just what my grandmother taught me. And you dropped out of high school to work. Yes, sir. We needed the money. I do deliveries and warehouse shifts. My sister's 14. School stuff costs. 3 jobs. Yes, sir. Richard fell silent, thoughtful. Tell me something. If money weren't an issue, what would you do? Marcus almost laughed. It was an impossible question. But he answered honestly, I'd study medicine. Not just the hospital kind, both kinds. I'd want to prove my grandmother's knowledge can work alongside modern science. That's ambitious, Richard said. That's impossible, Marcus corrected. I don't have a diploma or money for college. It's just a dream. Richard leaned forward. What if it didn't have to be a dream? Sir? What if I helped make it real? Marcus blinked. You mean pay for school? Call it an investment, Richard said. You saved my mother's life. You have knowledge the world needs, but no means to develop it. Let me fix that. I can't accept charity. It's not charity. You'll earn it. You'll work for every step. Marcus's mind spun. Why me? Because you reminded me what really matters, Richard said quietly. All my money. And I couldn't save my own mother. You could. That's something I want to nurture, not repay. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, and bring your grandmother to dinner tomorrow. I'd like to meet the woman who raised you. Marcus rode home in a daze, $500 in his pocket for an hour of conversation, and a promise that felt too big to believe. By the time he coasted up to their building, The December air had numbed his fingers. He leaned his old bicycle against the wall and climbed the narrow stairs 2 at a time. Mama Marin was at the stove, stirring a pot of stew that filled the apartment with the smell of thyme and garlic. Destiny sat at the kitchen table, bent over her homework. "How'd it go?" Mama Marin asked without looking up. Marcus blurted, "He wants to pay for me to go to school, medical school. He says it's not charity, but I don't understand why." "Sit down, baby," she said calmly. "You're making me nervous pacing like that." He sank into the chair across from her, still reeling. Destiny's eyes were wide. "He wants to pay for everything?" she asked. "That's what he said. Are you gonna say yes?" "I don't know. What if there's a catch? What if he wants to own me or something?" Mama Marin set down her spoon and gave him a look both firm and kind. "Or maybe he's just a father grateful his mother's alive." She ladled stew into a bowl and slid it toward him. "Eat first, then we'll talk." When he finished, she poured him a cup of tea and sat across from him. "Now," she said, folding her hands, "tell me everything he said." Marcus repeated the conversation. She listened quietly, eyes thoughtful. When he finished, she said simply, "He invited me to dinner." "Yes, tomorrow night." "Then I'll meet him," she said. "I'll look him in the eye and know what kind of man he is. If he's good people, we'll talk. If he's not, we walk away." "And if he is good people?" Marcus asked. She smiled, lines deepening at the corners of her eyes. "Then baby, maybe you just got offered a miracle. And we don't turn down miracles." The next evening Marcus rode Mama Marin up Winter Hill on his old bicycle. She sat sidle on the small rear seat he'd rigged years ago for errands, clutching her handbag and the hem of her best dress, the one she saved for church. She'd spent an hour making sure her hair was perfect before they left. "I'm nervous," she admitted as they climbed the hill. "I haven't been to a rich person's house since I was a housekeeper in Georgia, back before you were born." "You were a housekeeper?" Marcus asked, pedaling harder against the incline. "For about 6 months," she said. "Until the lady of the house found out I was treating the other staff with herbs, said I was practicing medicine without a license. Fired me on the spot." Marcus tightened his grip on the handlebars. "Maybe this is a bad idea." "Maybe," Mama Marin agreed softly. "Or maybe times have changed. We'll see." He stopped at the iron gates of the Langford estate, chained his bicycle to a post, and helped her down carefully. Together they walked up the long driveway lined with lamps and trimmed hedges. Martha met them at the door with a warm smile. "Mrs. Hale, I'm so glad to meet you. I'm Martha, the head housekeeper here. Marcus helped me with my arthritis last month, made such a difference." Mama Marin's posture relaxed slightly. "That's good to hear. The boy learned well." "He certainly did. Come in please. Mr. Langford and Mrs. Langford are waiting in the dining room." The dining room was as impressive as everything else in the mansion, a long table that could seat 20, though tonight only 4 places were set at one end. Crystal chandeliers, more paintings, windows overlooking the grounds. Mrs. Eleanor Langford sat at the table in a wheelchair, looking frail but alert. Richard stood beside her. "Mrs. Hale," Richard said, stepping forward to shake Mama Marin's hand. "Thank you so much for coming. This is my mother Eleanor." "Mrs. Hale," Eleanor said warmly, "I'm told I owe my life to your teaching." "Thank you." Mama Marin studied Eleanor for a moment, then smiled. "You're welcome, ma'am. But mostly you owe your life to being stubborn enough to fight through those seizures, and to having a son who loves you enough to try anything, even letting a delivery boy with herbs into your room." Eleanor laughed. "Fair enough. Please, sit, both of you." They sat at the table, and Marcus felt wildly out of place. He'd never eaten at a table this nice, never been served by a butler in a suit, never held silverware that was probably worth more than a month of his rent. But Mama Marin sat like she belonged there, her posture straight, her expression calm. "Tell me about yourself, Mrs. Hale," Eleanor said as dinner was served. "Richard says you taught Marcus everything he knows about healing. Call me Marin, please." Mrs. Hale was my mother-in-law and we didn't get along. She smiled to soften the words. "I grew up in rural Georgia, learned healing from my grandmother. When I moved north, I brought that knowledge with me, raised my daughter, then my grandchildren, and tried to help folks when I could." "Marcus tells me you've been treating people in Frostvale for years," Richard said. "That's right, folks who can't afford doctors or don't trust them. I do what I can with herbs and knowledge. Have you ever wanted to study medicine formally? Eleanor asked. Mama Marin laughed. I only finished 6th grade before I had to start working. Formal education wasn't in the cards for someone like me, but the knowledge you have is remarkable, Dr. Wells said. She'd been invited to dinner too, Marcus realized. The treatment Marcus used on Mrs. Langford, the herb combination, the pressure points, it was sophisticated and effective. It's old, Mama Marin said simply. My grandmother learned it from her grandmother, going back generations. It's not sophisticated, it's just what worked. That's exactly what makes it sophisticated, Dr. Wells said. It's been tested by time, refined through generations of practice. That's more rigorous than many modern protocols. Mama Marin looked at Dr. Wells with new interest. You really believe that? I do now, Dr. Wells said. 3 days ago I would have dismissed traditional healing as superstition. But watching what Marcus did, seeing the results, I can't deny that there's value in knowledge I never learned in medical school. Well, Mama Marin said, I'm glad to hear it, because I've always said the old knowledge and the new knowledge should work together. Neither one is complete without the other. They ate dinner, and the conversation flowed more naturally than Marcus had expected. Mama Marin and Eleanor discovered they were the same age, both 72. They compared notes on raising grandchildren, on getting old, on watching the world change around them. Richard mostly listened, and Marcus noticed him studying Mama Marin with careful attention. After dinner, Richard suggested coffee in the study, just the 4 of them, Richard, Mama Marin, Marcus, and Dr. Wells. Once they were settled with coffee in delicate china cups, Richard got to the point. Marin, I asked you here tonight, because I want to make Marcus an offer, and I won't do it without your blessing. Mama Marin set down her coffee cup. I'm listening. I want to fund Marcus's education, all of it. GED preparation, undergraduate degree, medical school, whatever additional training he needs. I want to give him the opportunity to become the kind of doctor who can bridge the gap between traditional healing and modern medicine. Mama Marin didn't respond immediately. She looked at Richard for a long moment. Why? She finally asked. Because he saved my mother's life. Because he has a gift that shouldn't be wasted. Because, no, Mama Marin interrupted gently. Why really? A lot of rich folks want to help the poor, makes them feel good, but most of them lose interest when it gets hard or boring, or when the next charity project catches their eye. So I need to know, why do you really want to do this? Richard was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because 3 days ago I realized something. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. But I couldn't save my own mother. Marcus has almost nothing, but he could. That showed me how little I actually understand about what matters. He looked at his mother, then back at Marin. I want to invest in Marcus because I think he can change how medicine works in this country, but also because helping him is the only way I know how to thank him for what he did. Mama Marin nodded slowly. That's honest. I appreciate that, but I need you to understand something, Richard continued. This isn't charity. I'm not doing this to make myself feel good. I'm doing it because I believe Marcus has something valuable to offer the world, and he needs resources to develop it. And what do you want in return? Mama Marin asked. Just one thing, that Marcus never forgets where he came from. That when he becomes a doctor he remembers Frostvale, remembers the people who can't afford fancy hospitals, remembers that healing should be available to everyone, not just people who can pay. Mama Marin studied Richard's face for a long moment, then she turned to Marcus. What do you want, baby? This is your life we're talking about. Marcus had been quiet through the whole conversation, trying to process what was happening. I want it, he said honestly. I want to learn, want to combine what you taught me with what medical school teaches, want to prove that traditional healing and modern medicine can work together. But, Mama Marin prompted. But I'm scared, Marcus admitted. What if I'm not smart enough? What if I can't keep up with students who went to good schools? What if I fail and waste Mr. Langford's money? You won't fail, Dr. Wells said firmly. I've been teaching medicine for 20 years. I can tell who has what it takes. You do. Mama Marin looked back at Richard. If Marcus says yes, I have conditions. Name them. First, Marcus works for everything. You pay for school, but he earns his keep. He doesn't become some spoiled kid living off your money. Agreed. Richard said immediately. Second, you put it in writing. Legal documents that protect Marcus, that guarantee his education no matter what happens to you or your fortune. Already done, Richard said. My lawyers have drafted a trust. The money is set aside specifically for Marcus's education. It can't be touched for any other purpose. Mama Marin's eyebrows rose. You were pretty confident I'd say yes. No, Richard said. But I was hopeful, and I wanted to show you I'm serious. Third condition, Mama Marin continued. Marcus doesn't owe you anything beyond his best effort in school. You're not buying him. You're investing in him. When he's done with school, he's free to make his own choices about his career. I wouldn't want it any other way. And fourth, if this ever starts to feel wrong, if you ever make Marcus feel like he's owned or controlled or less than, he walks away. No strings, no obligations. Richard nodded. Fair enough, though I hope it never comes to that. Mama Marin was quiet for another long moment. Then she looked at Marcus. What does your heart say, baby? Marcus took a deep breath. My heart says this is a chance I never thought I'd get, and that I'd be a fool not to take it. Then take it, Mama Marin said simply, and make me proud. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. I will, Grandma, I promise. Richard stood and extended his hand. Then we have a deal. Marcus shook his hand, and Richard's grip was firm and warm. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Richard said. Now let's talk about the practical details. Dr. Wells has offered to tutor you for your GED exam. We're thinking you can test in about 3 months if you study intensively. 3 months. Marcus felt overwhelmed. I've been out of school for almost 2 years. There's so much I don't remember. You'll remember, Dr. Wells said confidently. And what you don't remember, we'll reteach. I've cleared my schedule 3 afternoons a week. We'll start next Monday. After your GED, Richard continued, we'll enroll you in Snowbridge Community College. 2 years there to get your basic requirements, then you'll transfer to Snowbridge State University for your undergraduate degree. 4 years later, medical school. Marcus did the math in his head. 8 years minimum. He'd be 27 by the time he started medical school, 31 when he finished. But he'd be a doctor. A real doctor with real credentials who could combine Mama Marin's knowledge with modern medicine. I'll do it, Marcus said. Whatever it takes, I'll do it. I know you will, Mama Marin said, taking his hand. But Marcus, remember something for me. What, Grandma? Don't let all this education make you forget what you already know. Don't let those fancy doctors convince you that herbs and old knowledge are worthless. You stay true to what I taught you. Hear me. I will, Grandma. I promise. That night, riding home to Frostvale, Marcus felt like he was floating. The winter air stung his cheeks as the city lights blurred around him. His entire life had changed in the span of a few days. From delivery boy to what? A student, a future doctor. It didn't feel real. Mama Marin sat behind him on the small seat, her hands resting lightly on his shoulders. When they reached their building, Marcus coasted to a stop and leaned the bike against the railing. Grandma, he said softly. Yes, baby? What if I'm not good enough? What if I let everyone down? Mama Marin turned to him, her eyes fierce in the dim light of the street lamp. Marcus Hale, you listen to me. You are good enough. You've always been good enough. The world just didn't give you a chance to prove it. Now you got that chance. Don't waste it worrying about whether you deserve it. Just work hard and do your best. That's all anyone can ask. Marcus nodded, blinking back tears. Okay, Grandma. And Marcus, one more thing. What? I'm proud of you. Your mama would be proud of you too. You took a chance when it mattered, and you saved a life. That's who you are. Don't ever forget it. Marcus hugged his grandmother there on the steps, breathing in her familiar scent of herbs and home. I won't, Grandma. I promise I won't. Marcus started tutoring with Dr. Clara Wells that Monday, 3 afternoons a week, 2 to 5, in her office at Snowbridge General. The first day she gave him a diagnostic test. The results were grim. I failed, didn't I? He said. You didn't fail, she replied, gently. But you have gaps, especially in math and science. I knew it. I'm not smart enough for this. Stop that, Wells said sharply. You left school at 17, and your school failed you long before that. Intelligence isn't your problem, access is. But you can learn. You will learn. So Marcus learned. 3 afternoons a week with Dr. Wells, nights at the warehouse to help Mama Marin with rent, mornings making sure Destiny got to school. Richard Langford had offered to cover expenses, but Mama Marin refused. Marcus needs to stay grounded, she'd said. Work keeps a man honest. 2 months in, Marcus was exhausted, his hands cramped from writing, his eyes burned from studying after 10-hour shifts. At 2 a.m., one night, surrounded by algebra homework, he dropped his head onto the table and whispered, "I can't do this." Mama Marin appeared in her bathrobe, leaning against the doorway. "You thinking about quitting?" He didn't look up. "How'd you know?" "Because you look like your mama used to when life got heavy. Maybe I'm not cut out for this." "And what?" she said. "Give up before you even know what you could have been." "Grandma, I'm tired." "I know, baby, it's gonna be hard, harder than anything you've done. But remember," she lifted his chin, eyes fierce, "you already proved you're good enough. You saved a woman's life when 15 doctors couldn't. So don't tell me you're not smart enough for school. The question is, are you strong enough to keep going when it gets hard?" Marcus looked at her, saw unshakable faith. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Yeah, I am. Good. Now finish your homework." 3 months later, he took his GED exam, passed every section on the first try. "I'm proud of you," Wells said. "Now the real work begins." Marcus enrolled at Snowbridge Community College that spring. 20 years old, older than most, working nights, terrified he'd fail. The first semester nearly broke him. He failed his first quiz, got a C on his first essay, barely passed algebra. But he refused to quit. He went to every office hour, asked questions even when he felt stupid, studied until the library closed. Slowly, he began to catch up. His biology professor, Dr. Patricia Hayes, noticed. "Marcus," she said one day, "your last exam was excellent. Best in class. What changed?" "I dropped out of high school. I'm behind, but I'm trying to catch up." "You're working while studying?" "Yes, ma'am. Nights at a warehouse." Dr. Hayes nodded, impressed. "You should take my ethnobotany seminar next semester. The study of how cultures use plants for healing. I think you might have unique insights." Marcus's heart jumped. "Yes, ma'am, I'd love to." That seminar changed everything. For the first time, what Mama Marin had taught him mattered. The herbs she used, the remedies passed down through generations, here they were respected. "Can anyone explain feverfew's use for migraines?" Dr. Hayes asked one day. A student rattled off its chemistry. Marcus added quietly, "My grandmother uses feverfew for headaches, but it has to be fresh. You take it daily with food. It works slowly, not like aspirin." The class fell silent. Then Dr. Hayes smiled. "Exactly right. Studies confirm that." "How did she learn that?" 50 years of treating people," Marcus said. "That's empirical research," Dr. Hayes told the class. "Observation refined over decades, more rigorous than most clinical trials." After class, students gathered around him, curious. "My abuela does that too," one said. Marcus smiled. "Maybe superstition hides science. You just have to look closer." Word spread. Professors invited him to speak in their classes. Dr. Hayes urged him to document Mama Marin's methods. "This knowledge is disappearing," she said. "Write it down before it's lost." So Marcus did. Every night he recorded interviews with his grandmother in the kitchen. Her voice steady as she named herbs, explained dosages, told stories. He cross-referenced her knowledge with scientific research, building bridges between two worlds. By the end of the year he'd written over 100 pages. Dr. Hayes read it and said, "Marcus, this is publishable." "I'm just a community college student," he said. "You're a researcher," she corrected. With her help, he submitted his paper, Traditional Herbal Remedies in African American Communities, an empirical and scientific analysis. When it was published in a peer-reviewed journal, Mama Marin cried. "My name's in a real medical journal," she whispered, tracing the page where he'd credited her as primary source. "You deserve it," Marcus said softly. "Your knowledge saved lives." Now the world knows. Transferring to Snowbridge State for his junior year, Marcus faced a new kind of challenge, privilege. His classmates came from money, spoke about gap years in Europe, and looked at him like he didn't belong. "Hey, you're that delivery boy, right?" A student named Brandon Winters sneered. "The one who saved that rich lady." Marcus kept his cool. "I'm Marcus Hale, pre-med." "Right, must be nice having a billionaire sponsor." "I work 40 hours a week," Marcus said evenly. "Sure you do." Brandon smirked. "Enjoy your charity." Marcus walked away jaw tight, but the whispers followed him. Langford's pet project, the charity case. That night, he nearly quit. "I don't belong here," he told Mama Marin. "They're just jealous," she said. "They got money, you got purpose. Big difference. It doesn't feel like it." "That's because you're different, baby. You understand what it means to earn what you have. That's strength. Don't let them make you small. You belong anywhere you decide to stand." So Marcus stayed. He studied harder than anyone. By senior year, even his critics respected him. He'd published 3 more papers, presented at conferences, and earned a merit scholarship on his own. When Brandon passed him on campus one afternoon, he said grudgingly, "Heard you're top of the class, Hale. Guess you're not just a charity case." Marcus smiled faintly. "Guess not." That night, he brought home his acceptance letter to medical school. Mama Marin hugged him tight, tears glistening in her eyes. "I told you," she said. "You were meant for this." Marcus smiled. "Couldn't have done it without you." She tapped his chest. "You did it with what's in here, remember that." He was 24, standing on the edge of everything he'd worked for, when his world began to shift again, proof that even the strongest dreams are built on fragile hearts. Mama Marin collapsed on a Tuesday evening in March. Marcus was at the library, studying for his organic chemistry final, when his phone rang. Destiny's name on the screen. "Marcus," her voice was shaking so hard he could barely understand her. "Marcus, you need to come home. It's Grandma. She fell and I called 911 and..." "Where are you?" "Snowbridge General. The ambulance just got here." "Marcus, she's not waking up." Marcus ran out of the library, leaving his book spread across the table. He drove like a madman to the hospital, his hands shaking on the steering wheel, Mama Marin's voice echoing in his head. "I won't be around forever, baby. You need to be ready." But he wasn't ready, not for this, not now. He found Destiny in the emergency room waiting area, curled up in a plastic chair with tears streaming down her face. She was 17 now, trying to be strong, trying not to fall apart. Marcus pulled her into a hug, and she broke sobbing into his chest. She was just making dinner, Destiny choked out. She was stirring the pot, and she said she felt dizzy and then she just fell. I tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't open her eyes, and, "Shit's okay, you did the right thing calling 911, is she going to die?" Marcus couldn't answer that, couldn't lie to his sister, but couldn't tell her the truth that was screaming in his head. They waited for what felt like hours, but was probably only 45 minutes before a doctor came out. "Family of Marin Hale, we're her grandchildren," Marcus said standing. "How is she?" The doctor's expression was gentle but grave. "I'm Dr. Kim. Your grandmother has had a massive stroke. The damage is extensive, affecting the left hemisphere of her brain. We've stabilized her for now, but..." "But what?" Destiny whispered. "She's 75 years old. Her body has been through a lot. The next 72 hours will be critical. Can we see her?" Marcus asked. "Yes, she's in the ICU, but I need you to understand she's not conscious. She may not wake up." Marcus felt like someone had punched him in the chest. "Can I talk to her? Can she hear us?" "We don't know," Dr. Kim said honestly. "Some patients with strokes this severe can hear but can't respond. Others can't process sound at all. But it can't hurt to try." They followed Dr. Kim to the ICU. Mama Marin lay in a hospital bed that made her look impossibly small. Tubes and wires connected her to machines that beeped and hummed. Marcus sat beside her bed and took her hand. It was so thin, so fragile. When had she gotten so small? "Grandma," he whispered. "It's Marcus. I'm here. Destiny's here too. "You're going to be okay, you have to be okay." But Mama Marin didn't respond, didn't open her eyes, didn't squeeze his hand. Dr. Wells came to the hospital that night. So did Richard Langford. Even Eleanor came, though she was still recovering from her own health scare and wasn't supposed to be out of bed. "I'm so sorry, Marcus," Eleanor said, taking a seat beside him. "Marin is a wonderful woman. She's not dead yet," Marcus said, and it came out harsher than he meant. "Sorry. She's strong. She's going to fight this." But after 3 days it was clear Mama Marin wasn't fighting. She wasn't getting better. The machines were keeping her alive, but she wasn't really living. Dr. Kim pulled Marcus aside. "On the morning of the 4th day, I need to talk to you about next steps." "What kind of next steps?" "Your grandmother's condition isn't improving. The stroke damage is too extensive. At this point, we're looking at long-term life support, or," he paused, "or letting her go peacefully." "No," Marcus said immediately. "No, we don't give up." "Marcus, I understand this is difficult, but you don't understand anything," Marcus said, his voice rising. "That's my grandmother. She raised me. She taught me everything I know. We don't just give up on her." Dr. Kim was quiet for a moment. Then he said gently, "What would she want?" Marcus opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. What would she want? He remembered a conversation from 2 years ago. They'd been watching the news, a story about a woman on life support for 6 months while her family fought over whether to remove her from the machines. "If that ever happens to me," Mama Marin had said, "you let me go, you hear? Don't keep me around just because you're not ready to say goodbye. When it's time, it's time." "Grandma, don't talk like that. I'm serious, Marcus. I've lived a good life. A long life. When my body's done, let it be done. Don't trap me in machines." Marcus had promised her then, had told her he'd respect her wishes, but that was before it was real. Before he was actually standing in a hospital facing the choice. He spent the next day sitting with Mama Marin, holding her hand, talking to her about everything and nothing. He told her about his classes, about his research, about his plans for medical school. Told her about the health clinic he wanted to open someday in Frostvale where people like her could get care that respected their traditional knowledge while providing modern medicine too. "I can't do it without you, Grandma," he whispered. "I don't know how to do any of this without you." That evening as the sun set over Snowbridge, Marcus felt Mama Marin's hand twitch in his. He sat up straight, his heart pounding. "Grandma, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open just for a second. They were cloudy, unfocused, but they found his face. "Marcus," she whispered. It was barely a sound, but he heard it. "I'm here, Grandma, I'm right here. You did good, baby. Made me proud. You're going to be okay. You just need to rest." "And no," she interrupted, her voice stronger. "Time to go." "Don't say that. You're strong. You can fight this." "Don't want to fight." Each word was an effort. "Want to rest." Tears streamed down Marcus's face. "I'm not ready. I can't lose you." Mama Marin's hand tightened slightly on his. "Yes, you can. You're ready. Been ready for a long time. Please don't go. Use what I gave you," she whispered. "Help people, all people, rich, poor, doesn't matter. Just help." "I will. I promise. Good boy." Her eyes started to close. "Tell Destiny, love her. Tell her, be strong. Grandma, love you, baby. Always proud." Her hand went slack in his. The machines started beeping frantically. Nurses rushed in, but Marcus knew. He knew she was gone. The funeral was held at the church in Frostvale 5 days later. Marcus had expected a small service. Mama Marin had been poor, quiet, not someone the world considered important, but the church was packed, overflowing. People Marcus had never seen before filled the pews, stood in the aisles, crowded the doorway. They were people from the community, people Mama Marin had helped over the years. They came to pay their respects, to share their stories, to say goodbye to a woman who had touched their lives. "She saved my baby when the doctors said nothing could be done," one woman said during the service. "She helped me through the worst time of my life." Another said, "Never asked for a penny. She was a light in this neighborhood." An elderly man said, "We're all going to miss her." Marcus sat in the front pew with Destiny, both of them numb with grief. Richard and Eleanor Langford sat behind them. Dr. Wells was there too, along with Dr. Hayes and several other professors from the university. Two worlds meeting to mourn one woman who had bridged them. After the funeral, as people were leaving, Richard pulled Marcus aside. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Marin was a remarkable woman." "Thank you, sir. I know this is terrible timing, but I need to ask you something. What are you going to do about school?" Marcus hadn't even thought about it. He had finals in 2 weeks. Medical school applications were due in 3 months. "I don't know," he admitted. "I can't think about school right now." "You should take time off," Richard said. "Take the semester off, take next year off if you need it. The money will still be there when you're ready." Marcus shook his head. "That's not what she'd want. She'd want me to keep going, to use what she gave me." "Marcus, you just lost your grandmother. No one would blame you for." "I'm not taking time off," Marcus said firmly. "I'm finishing this semester. I'm applying to medical school. I'm doing what she wanted me to do." Richard studied his face. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." So Marcus went back to school. He took his finals while his grief was still raw. He studied while missing his grandmother so intensely it physically hurt. He applied to medical school while trying to figure out how to live in a world without Mama Marin's voice to guide him. It was the hardest thing he'd ever done, but he did it, because she'd taught him to keep going, even when things were impossible, to help even when it hurt, to use his knowledge to make a difference. Marcus Hale graduated from Snowbridge State University with highest honors. He was accepted to Snowbridge University School of Medicine with a full academic scholarship. He was 25 years old and he was going to become a doctor, just like Mama Marin had always known he would. Medical school was brutal. Marcus had known it would be hard, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The endless lectures, exams and late nights spent memorizing anatomy, physiology and pathology while working part-time at a nursing home and caring for Destiny. He was exhausted, grieving Mama Marin and surrounded by classmates who seemed born for this world. Children of doctors, graduates of elite universities, fluent in the language of medicine. He failed his first anatomy exam. Not by much, but enough to shake him. That night in the library, Dr. Clara Wells, his mentor since the Langford days, found him staring at his notes. "I'm not smart enough for this," Marcus muttered. "One exam doesn't define you," she said firmly. "You don't need to study harder, you need to study differently." She listened to his process, reading, highlighting, repeating, and shook her head. "You're memorizing medicine is about connections. Think of anatomy like your grandmother's herbs, how each part works with another. You already know systems. Apply that." They worked for hours. She showed him how to visualize, link function to structure, think in networks. On his next exam, he scored a 92. "See," Wells said smiling. "You don't lack intelligence, you just needed your own way in." Marcus began to find rhythm in the chaos. But even as he excelled, he felt like an outsider. The only student juggling shifts at a nursing home. The only one who understood what poverty did to the body. During his second-year ER rotation he started to see the cracks in the system. Patients came back again and again, same problems, same suffering. Diabetes, hypertension, crises that could have been prevented. One patient changed everything. Mrs. Judith Thompson, 78, with dangerously high blood pressure. "She's non-compliant," the resident said. Marcus looked through her chart. 5 different medications, taken at different times, some expensive brand names. When he asked gently, "Are you having trouble remembering your meds?" Mrs. Thompson snorted. "Remembering's not the issue, affording is. You know how much 5 prescriptions cost on Social Security." She ate what she could. Cheap canned food, frozen dinners. "Doctors just tell me to eat better, and exercise," she said. "Like there's a Whole Foods on my block." Marcus sat beside her. "What if I told you there are herbs that can help lower blood pressure, things you can grow yourself?" She looked wary. "That really works. My grandmother treated high blood pressure for 50 years using hawthorn, garlic, hibiscus tea, but it has to be balanced with your medication. Good luck finding a doctor who believes in that." "I know one," Marcus said. "Dr. Patricia Hayes. She practices integrative medicine. May I connect you?" 3 months later Dr. Hayes told him Mrs. Thompson's progress, down to 2 medications, blood pressure improved, feeling stronger. She says she's finally taking control of her health. Marcus felt something stir inside him. This was what medicine should be, not just treating disease, empowering people. He started writing again, launching a blog for everyday readers, posts about blending traditional remedies with scientific evidence, about growing herbs in apartments, reading food labels, finding affordable care. At first a few dozen readers, then Dr. Hayes shared his posts, then classmates. Then a local station ran a story on the medical student bridging science and tradition. Within months thousands followed his work. Comments flooded in. My grandmother used the same remedies, I never knew there was science behind it. This is what healthcare should be, respectful, human. Not everyone agreed. Professors accused him of promoting pseudoscience. You're encouraging people to trust folk medicine, one said. I'm encouraging them to trust evidence. Marcus replied, some folk medicine is evidence, it's just been ignored. He refused to back down. By his 4th year his quiet defiance drew attention. Dr. James Sullivan, director of the National Institute of Integrative Medicine, reached out. I've been following your work, Sullivan said over coffee. You understand both worlds, the clinical and the traditional. That's rare. We'd like to offer you a research fellowship, fully funded. You document traditional healing practices across cultures and study them scientifically. Marcus hesitated. I was planning a family medicine residency. You can do both, Sullivan said. Split your time between clinic and research. Marcus thought of Mama Marin. She always said old knowledge and new knowledge should work together, he murmured. This is that chance, so you'll say yes. He nodded. Yes. The next 4 years transformed him. Between residency rotations, he traveled the country, interviewing healers in every corner of America. In Arizona, a Navajo medicine woman showed him desert plants that balanced blood sugar. In California, a Vietnamese herbalist demonstrated remedies passed through 12 generations. In Kentucky, an Appalachian folk healer taught him the uses of roots and barks found only in those hills. He met curanderas in Texas, root workers in the Carolinas, midwives in Mississippi. Each carried a legacy the medical establishment had dismissed, and Marcus was determined to preserve it. He recorded their methods, verified ingredients, cross-referenced centuries-old remedies with modern pharmacology. Some failed under scrutiny, others revealed astonishing efficacy. He published papers, first one, then many, presented at conferences. His integrative approach earned both curiosity and controversy, but slowly respect grew. By the time Marcus finished residency at 31, he had authored 18 peer-reviewed studies, appeared in documentaries, and built a digital archive of traditional healing now used by researchers worldwide. He had become exactly what Mama Marin envisioned, a bridge between worlds. Still something unfinished tugged at him. A promise made years ago, to bring what he'd learned home, to Frostvale. On a cold December morning 10 years after he'd saved Eleanor Langford's life, Dr. Marcus Hale drove back to Frostvale. He was 30 now, a doctor with degrees, papers and respect. Yet as he passed the apartment building where he'd grown up and the church where they'd held Mama Marin's funeral, he felt 19 again. Still that scared kid wondering if he was good enough. 6 months earlier, Richard Langford had called. I want to build something, he'd said. A community health center in Frostvale. Free care that combines modern medicine with traditional healing, everything you've been researching, and I want you to run it. Marcus could only whisper, the Marin Hale Community Health Center, named for your grandmother. To keep her wisdom alive, say yes, Marcus, come home. And now 10 years after that fateful morning, Marcus was home. The old warehouse in Frostvale's center had become something extraordinary. Sunlight poured through wide windows onto walls painted in warm colors. The waiting room was filled with plants and photos of local families. In back an herb garden flourished, every plant Mama Marin had used to heal, now growing where patients could learn and take cuttings home. Inside the center blended worlds, exam rooms with state-of-the-art equipment beside a dispensary stocked with both pharmaceuticals and herbal medicines, a teaching kitchen for nutrition classes, a community room for workshops and support groups. At its heart was the healing circle. Once a week, traditional healers met with doctors and nurses to exchange knowledge. Neither hierarchy nor competition, just collaboration. It's beautiful, said Dr. Clara Wells as she toured the day before opening. Retired now, she still mentored Marcus. Marin would be proud. I hope so, Marcus murmured. His staff reflected that same spirit. Dr. Patricia Hayes, teaching ethnobotany, family doctors, nurse practitioners, a pharmacist fluent in both modern and herbal medicine, social workers, educators, and Martha the Langford's former housekeeper, who'd insisted on helping. "I want to give back," she'd said. "Mrs. Marin helped me once. Now it's my turn." Opening day dawned clear and cold. Marcus arrived early, nerves buzzing. What if no one comes? What if they don't trust us? By 9 a.m., the line stretched around the block. Neighbors who'd known Mama Marin, families who needed affordable care, people who still believed in healing with dignity. Eleanor Langford arrived in her wheelchair, Richard by her side. She was 88, frail but sharp-eyed. "Marcus," she said warmly, "this is wonderful. Thank you, Mrs. Langford. None of this exists without you." She shook her head. "It exists because of you, because you had the courage to knock on our door 10 years ago." At 10 o'clock, Marcus stepped to the podium before hundreds Frostvale residents, doctors, traditional healers, and 3 people in the front row. Destiny, now 27 and a social worker, Dr. Wells, and Richard Langford. 10 years ago, Marcus began, "I was a delivery boy with a bag of herbs. I had no credentials, no reason to think I could help anyone. But my grandmother taught me, if you can help, you help." That moment, knocking on a door I had no business knocking on, changed everything. It proved that traditional knowledge matters, that the wisdom carried by grandmothers, healers, elders is real and worth preserving. He gestured behind him. "This building represents what my grandmother believed, that healing belongs to everyone, that the best medicine blends old and new, that every person deserves care that honors their dignity and their culture." He looked at Richard. "This wouldn't exist without your belief in what others dismissed." Then at Dr. Wells, "Or without your guidance, showing me a kid from Frostvale could become a doctor who changes medicine." Finally, at the photo of Mama Marin smiling in her kitchen. "But most of all, this exists because of her, because she taught me that healing is compassion and respect. I wish she could see this. Maybe she can." The crowd was silent, then applause swelled, rolling like thunder. Eleanor rose slowly, steadying herself at the podium. "I'm 88 years old," she said, voice clear and strong. "I've learned that what matters isn't money or possessions, it's whether you make the world better for having been in it. 10 years ago, I was dying. The best doctors couldn't save me, but a 19-year-old boy with a bag of herbs could. He taught me that wisdom exists outside privilege, that healing can come from anywhere if we're humble enough to listen." She turned to the crowd. "This young man didn't just save my life, he showed us a better way. One where different kinds of knowledge work together, where healthcare is accessible, compassionate, and shared. The Langford family is honored to support this center, but this isn't charity, it's learning. We're learning from Frostvale that the future of medicine isn't luxury, it's community." The applause rose again, louder, and Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. After the ceremony, people filled the building. Families registered for appointments, children explored the herb garden, elders shared stories of Mama Marin. A shy little girl approached Marcus, clutching a potted peppermint. "Dr. Hale." "That's me," he said, crouching to her level. "I'm Maya Williams. My mom says your grandma helped her a long time ago, when she was sick." Marcus looked toward a familiar face. "Sarah Williams." Maya nodded proudly. "This is for you. My mom taught me to grow it. She said your grandma taught her." Marcus took the plant carefully. "Thank you, Maya. It's beautiful. Can I learn too?" she asked. "About herbs and helping people. I want to be a healer like you." He smiled. "The world needs more healers, so yes, I'll teach you just like my grandmother taught me." "Deal." She grinned and ran back to her mother. Marcus stood holding the peppermint, watching the Frostvale families flow in and out of the center, feeling the past and future meet in that garden. Dr. Wells joined him. "You did it, Marcus. You kept your promise." "I had help," he said. "But you were the bridge," she replied. "That's rare." That night, after everyone left, Marcus walked alone through the herb garden. He planted Maya's peppermint beside Mama Marin's old remedies. Snow began to fall, dusting the leaves. Richard Langford found him there. "You okay?" Marcus nodded, just thinking about her. "How this all started because she believed in helping people, and believed in me. She was remarkable," Richard said. "She was." Marcus smiled faintly. "You know what she'd say if she saw this, that it's too fancy, that you don't need a big building to heal, just a kitchen table and some herbs. Richard laughed softly. Probably, but she'd still be proud, because this isn't about the building, it's about the mission. They stood quietly as snow thickened around them. Thank you, Marcus said at last, for believing in me, for honoring her. You earned it, Richard said, placing a hand on his shoulder. And thank you for saving my mother, for teaching me what really matters. He smiled. Your grandmother would be so proud. When Richard left, Marcus lingered in the cold, snowflakes catching in his hair, the air sharp with peppermint and rosemary. He looked up at the dark sky and whispered, I did it, Grandma. I kept my promise. I used what you gave me to help people, and I'll keep doing it. The wind rustled through the garden, carrying the faintest echo of her voice, warm, proud, unmistakably hers. I know you did, baby. I always knew you would. The Marin Hale Community Health Center had been open for 6 months, and its impact was already undeniable. Emergency visits from Frostvale had dropped by a third. Complications from chronic disease were down. Life expectancy, once 12 years shorter than the city average, was rising. But numbers didn't tell the whole story. Mrs. Judith Thompson, the elderly woman Marcus had met in the ER during medical school, was now a regular patient. She'd gone from 5 blood pressure meds to 1, supplementing with herbs she grew herself. She'd lost 20 pounds and started a neighborhood walking group. I feel like myself again, she told Marcus, like I'm living, not just surviving. That was the difference. The center didn't just treat disease, it gave people power over their health. Marcus had introduced what he called healing partnerships. Instead of a doctor prescribing and a patient obeying, both became collaborators. What are your goals? He'd ask. What matters most to you? Together they'd design a plan that blended modern medicine with herbs, stress reduction, nutrition, and realistic lifestyle changes. I can write a prescription, Marcus would say, but if you can't afford it, or can't take it 3 times a day, it won't work. So let's find what will. The model was revolutionary, and it worked. Word spread fast. Soon patients came from other neighborhoods, then other cities. Articles called him the doctor who mixes medicine with grandmother's wisdom. Medical schools invited him to lecture. Hospitals wanted to copy his approach. Communities begged for their own centers. Marcus stayed humble. Frostvale grounded him. When Harvard invited him to give a grand rounds talk, he hesitated. It's 3 days away from patients, he told Destiny, over dinner. Marcus, she said gently, you can't help everyone by yourself. If you talk, maybe a student hears you, maybe they build their own center. That's helping too. She was right, the ripple mattered. So he went to Harvard, Yale, Johns Hopkins. He told the story of that December morning, a boy with herbs, a grandmother's wisdom, a billionaire's humility. People listened. Students sought him out. Residents came to train in Frostvale. Traditional healers reached out to share knowledge with a doctor who respected them. A movement was forming, yet he never forgot the heart of it, one patient at a time. One Tuesday, in the middle of clinic, Martha knocked. Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Hale, but someone's here. Says it's urgent. Can they wait? She said to tell you her name is Eleanor Langford. Marcus froze. He hadn't seen her in months. Moments later he was kneeling beside Eleanor's wheelchair. She looked frail, her once commanding presence now delicate. Richard stood behind her. Is everything okay? Marcus asked. I'm dying, Eleanor said simply, this time for real. Maybe a month, maybe less. Marcus's throat tightened. I'm so sorry, I don't want to die in a hospital, she said. I want to die like your grandmother did, at peace, not hooked up to machines. Can you help me? Marcus nodded, eyes wet. Yes, ma'am, I'll make sure you're comfortable. Eleanor smiled faintly. You saved my life once, now help me end it peacefully. Full circle. Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus visited daily. He managed her pain with a balance of medicine and herbal remedies, taught hospice nurses simple pressure points, and sat with her when she needed company. She told stories about her husband, her mistakes, her joys. You know what I've learned, she whispered one afternoon, that the only thing that matters is kindness, whether you helped people. You did, Marcus said. You and your son changed my life, and thousands more. Only because you had the courage to knock on our door, Eleanor said. Promise me something, anything. Keep building bridges. Keep proving that knowledge from every culture matters. People die because arrogance keeps us from listening. Promise me you'll keep fighting that." "I promise," Marcus said softly. Eleanor Langford died 3 days later, in her sleep, with Richard holding one hand and Marcus the other. She looked peaceful, just like Mama Marin. Her funeral drew hundreds of business leaders, politicians, Frostvale residents, healers, doctors, two worlds, united in grief. Richard asked Marcus to speak. Marcus stood at the cathedral's podium, the same fear he'd once felt outside the Langford mansion fluttering in his chest. 15 years ago he began. "I was terrified to knock on Eleanor Langford's door. I was a delivery boy with a bag of herbs. She was one of the wealthiest women in Snowbridge. We had no reason to trust each other, but she was dying, and I thought I could help." Instead of dismissing me, Eleanor and her son listened. That moment of humility saved her life, and changed mine. It changed Richard's understanding of what matters, and eventually it changed how whole communities receive care. He smiled through tears. Eleanor used to joke that the Italian aromatherapy oil almost killed her, and my grandmother's kitchen herbs saved her. She said it taught her that wisdom doesn't have a price tag, that it's not about prestige, it's about whether it heals. Marcus looked at Richard, who wept openly. "Eleanor Langford was born into privilege," he said, voice steady, "but she died knowing something few ever learn, that wealth means nothing without compassion, that wisdom can come from anyone, if we're humble enough to listen." My grandmother Marin Hale died 5 years ago. She and Eleanor never met, but they would have been friends. Both understood that healing is about more than medicine. It's about respect, about seeing the humanity in everyone. Before she died, Eleanor made me promise to keep fighting for accessible care, for integrative medicine, for honoring every form of knowledge. That's the legacy she and my grandmother left me, and I intend to keep that promise. The cathedral was silent but for quiet sobs. Afterward, Richard approached. "Thank you," he said. "Mom would have loved it. I meant every word. I know, there's something else, something she wanted." He led Marcus to a quiet room. "She left instructions in her will," he said. "She set aside $50 million to expand your work, to build centers like Frostvale across the country, and she wanted you in charge. No conditions, except to stay true to your mission." Marcus blinked, stunned. $50 million. She believed what you're doing could change healthcare. Richard said gently, "Take your time to decide." But she was right. What started in Frostvale can go far beyond it. For a week Marcus wrestled with it. $50 million meant transformation, but also risk. Could he grow without losing what made the center special? He sought advice. Dr. Wells urged him on. "This is your chance to make structural change." Dr. Hayes was cautious. "Only if you keep it about people, not prestige." And Destiny, as always, spoke to his heart. "Then don't do it from an ivory tower. Stay here, keep seeing patients, expand, but don't leave." She was right. He could do both. So Marcus accepted Eleanor's gift, but on his terms. He remained in Frostvale, still treating patients 3 days a week. He used the funds to train new doctors who shared his philosophy that medicine must listen as well as teach. Within 2 years 5 Marin Hale community health centers had opened: Frostvale, South Chicago, Detroit, rural Appalachia, and the South Bronx. Within 5 years there were 15. Each followed the same model: accessible, integrative, community-led. Doctors worked alongside herbalists and local healers. Each had an herb garden, a teaching kitchen, and the same question for every patient: what matters most to you? And Marcus personally trained every doctor. "You're not here to save people," he told them. "You're here to empower them, to bridge what they already know with what modern medicine offers." The results were extraordinary. Patient outcomes improved. Costs fell. Communities once abandoned by the healthcare system finally found care that respected their culture and dignity. Marcus published studies, spoke at conferences, trained hundreds of physicians. Yet he still spent mornings in the Frostvale garden, hands in the dirt, remembering the boy he'd been. One snowy evening, as he locked up the original center, Marcus paused by the front sign. The Marin Hale Community Health Center, healing with wisdom and dignity. He thought of Mama Marin and Eleanor, the healer and the woman who dared to listen. Thought of the knock that had started it all. 15 years ago he'd been a scared delivery boy with a bag of herbs, facing a mansion door that divided two worlds. He'd knocked anyway. That single act of courage had rippled outward, saving lives, reshaping medicine, proving that compassion is the bridge between knowledge and healing. Marcus looked up at the Frostvale sky, the snow falling softly, and heard Mama Marin's voice in his heart. "You did good, baby. You did real good." And for the first time Marcus smiled, not as the boy who'd been afraid, but as the man who had kept every promise. On a cold December morning, 15 years after Marcus saved Eleanor Langford's life, he stood in the herb garden of the Frostvale Center, watching the sun rise over the neighborhood where he'd grown up. He was 35 now, a nationally recognized expert in integrative medicine, director of a network of community health centers, author of 3 books, and professor at Snowbridge University. But in Frostvale he was still Dr. Hale, the man who treated neighbors, tended herbs by hand, and never forgot who he was. Destiny found him there, smiling softly, thinking about her, both of them, Marcus said, Grandma and Mrs. Langford, wondering if they'd be proud. They would, Destiny said. You're still doing what Grandma taught, helping people with dignity, just more of them now. She was right. The mission hadn't changed, only the scale. A message buzzed on Marcus's phone. Your 8 a.m. is here early. His first patient was Maya Williams, 13, tall, full of life, clutching a notebook bursting with plant sketches. Hey Dr. Hale, I'm not sick, I just need advice, she said breathlessly. Marcus smiled. I'm listening. She opened her notebook showing meticulous notes. I've been growing herbs, learning what they do, helping my mom treat people in our building. I want to be a doctor like you, someone who knows both worlds. How do I start? Marcus felt a warmth deep in his chest, the same spark he'd once felt sitting beside Mama Marin's window garden. The circle was continuing. You're 13, he said. Good, you've got time. Focus on science, biology, chemistry, but keep learning the old ways too. Never let anyone tell you that knowledge matters less. Can I volunteer here? She asked eagerly. If your mom agrees and if you work hard, I will. After she left, Marcus sat for a long time in the quiet, feeling his grandmother's presence. This was why he'd become a doctor, not for prestige or publications, but for moments like that. That afternoon, Richard Langford called. Marcus, can you come to the estate? There's something I'd like to show you. The drive up Winter Hill felt like revisiting another lifetime. Richard greeted him at the door, older now, white-haired, still sharp-eyed. In his study lay a worn leather journal. My mother kept this her whole life, Richard said softly. I finally read it. There's something you should hear. He opened to an entry dated 3 days before Eleanor's death. I've been thinking about legacy. Money won't matter, but maybe I changed something. The moment I humbled myself to accept help from Marcus Hale, opened a door, not just for me, but for others. The Marin Hale Centers will prove that healing comes from many sources, that traditional wisdom and modern medicine need each other. My real legacy isn't wealth, but the courage to listen to a 19-year-old boy the world told me to dismiss. If pride had won that day, I'd be long gone. Instead, I lived to see a better way. Richard's voice faltered. She understood Marcus. She wasn't just grateful. She was proud to have helped build what you've created. Marcus swallowed hard. Thank you for showing me. There's one more thing, Richard said, leading him outside to a secluded garden. At its center stood a statue. 2 women at a kitchen table, heads bowed together over herbs. The inscription read, Marin Hale and Eleanor Langford, 2 women who never really knew each other, but who together changed how we heal. 2010. 2025. Marcus felt tears fall freely. My mother's wish, Richard said quietly. She wanted them remembered together. 2 worlds, 1 bridge, you. That evening Marcus returned to Frostvale, to the same modest apartment he'd never left. As twilight fell, he walked through the streets, past children playing, neighbors chatting, the life his grandmother had loved. He stopped at the little church where her funeral had been held. The door, as always, was open. He sat in the same pew as years ago, when grief had nearly broken him. I did it, Grandma, he whispered. I kept my promise. I used what you taught me. I built bridges between worlds, and I made sure your knowledge survived. The silence around him felt alive. He could almost feel her hand on his shoulder, hear her warm voice. And the best part, Marcus said softly, smiling through tears, it's not ending with me. There's a girl named Maya, she's going to carry it forward. The circle keeps going. He stayed there until the stars appeared, peace settling over him at last. On his way home he passed the Marin Hale Community Health Center. The lights glowed through the windows. Inside, people were being treated with dignity and respect, just as his grandmother had taught. 15 years ago, he'd been a terrified boy with a bag of herbs, standing outside a mansion's door. He'd knocked anyway. That single act of courage had changed everything. Lives saved, doctors trained, knowledge preserved, bridges built, all because a grandmother had taught her grandson to help, no matter who needed it. All because a wealthy woman had been humble enough to listen. All because a scared teenager had chosen courage over fear. Marcus looked up at the stars, the December air cold against his face, and heard Mama Marin's voice as clear as the night sky. "You did good, baby. You did real good." And for the first time since she'd gone, Marcus truly believed it. Dr. Maya Williams stood at the podium of the National Institute of Integrative Medicine's annual conference, looking out at an audience of over 3,000 doctors, nurses, traditional healers, and medical students. She was 38 years old now, director of the Marin Hale Community Health Center in Frostvale, the same center where she'd volunteered as a teenager, where she'd learned from Dr. Marcus Hale. 25 years ago today, Maya began. A young delivery man named Marcus Hale made a decision that changed healthcare in America. He decided to knock on a door he had no business knocking on, to offer help he had no credentials to offer, to trust knowledge that the world told him was worthless. She clicked to the first slide, a photo of Marcus at 19, standing outside the Langford estate, looking terrified and determined. That moment of courage created ripples that are still spreading. Today there are 47 Marin Hale Community Health Centers across the United States. Over 1 million patients receive integrative care that respects both modern medicine and traditional healing. Hundreds of doctors have been trained in the approach Dr. Hale pioneered. Maya clicked to the next slide, a photo of an elderly Marcus still working in the herb garden at the Frostvale Center despite being in his 60s. Dr. Hale is retired from administrative duties now, but he still sees patients 2 days a week, still teaches medical students, still insists that the most important lessons in medicine come from listening to patients, to traditional healers, to anyone who has knowledge to share. She smiled. "He taught me that, just like his grandmother taught him." Maya clicked to a photo of Mama Marin, standing in her tiny kitchen, surrounded by herbs. Marin Hale never went to medical school, never had letters after her name, never published a paper or received an award, but her knowledge saved lives. And more than that, her wisdom, her insistence that healing belongs to everyone, that knowledge should be shared, that compassion matters more than credentials, that wisdom changed how we think about healthcare. The final slide showed the statue at the Langford estate. Marin and Eleanor, 2 women from different worlds, heads bent together over healing herbs. "This is our heritage," Maya said. 2 women who never really knew each other, but who together taught us that wisdom comes from unexpected places, that the best medicine combines different kinds of knowledge, that humility and respect matter more than prestige and credentials. She looked out at the audience. "I'm standing here today because 25 years ago Dr. Marcus Hale saw a 13-year-old girl with a potted plant and believed in her, just like his grandmother believed in him, just like Eleanor Langford believed in both of them." Maya's voice grew stronger. "And now it's our turn to carry this knowledge forward, our turn to build bridges, our turn to honor all kinds of wisdom while advancing the science of healing. Our turn to prove that the best medicine happens when we're humble enough to learn from everyone." The audience rose in a standing ovation. After her presentation, Maya found Marcus in the hallway. He was using a cane now, moving slowly, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. "You did good up there," Marcus said, pulling her into a hug. "Marin would be proud." "I learned from the best," Maya said. Marcus smiled. "You learned from your mother first. Don't forget that. Sarah taught you to grow herbs before I ever met you." "I know." "The circle keeps going. That's all we can ask for," Marcus said. "The knowledge continues. The mission continues. The healing continues." They stood together in comfortable silence, teacher and student, both carrying forward a legacy that had started in a tiny kitchen in Frostvale 40 years earlier. A legacy that had been nearly lost when a young man dropped out of school to work, but that had been saved when he found the courage to knock on a door. and that now lived on in thousands of practitioners, millions of patients, and a new understanding of what healing could be, all because one grandmother taught her grandson to help people, and one scared teenager chose to listen.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.